start singing. Get the thing going. It's actually a nice day. It's not so yeah. Right?
It's right here. Gotta cross it, you know.
Heard loud and clear. Our message tonight is very simple. I can't hear you. Vote to Trump state national emergency. Do you agree? Yes. We want to thank all the groups here, part of this crisis response network. Move on, here, New York Immigration Coalition, and so many others that are here. This is the best of New York City when we come out strong and say no to power. We're going to have a bunch of speakers. They're going to explain why the emergency is unconstitutional, why it's unprecedented, why it's a separation of powers between the legislative and executive branch of government. We have someone from the legislative branch, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler. We have activists, and so let's begin the program. Our first speaker, why don't you start off? Okay. Introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, New Yorkers! My name is Afaf Nasher. I'm the Executive Director for CARE New York, New York chapter of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. And at CARE New York, we've seen a lot with our broader community in terms of discrimination and racism, and today we stand together with you as one community. You know, this latest shameless executive order has the same intent as the Muslim ban 2 years ago, to bypass Congress and thus an attempt to bypass the people's will, your will. But my brothers and my sisters, children separated from families, refugees, asylum seekers, immigrants whose dream of a better life, we know that poses no state of emergency, but rather a real crisis. Our threat is the president himself. Our real crisis, our threat is a president who refuses to recognize separation of power. Our real threat is a president who defies the Constitution he swore to uphold. Our threat is a president who thinks that his will overrides that of the people's will. Our threat is a president who peddles anti-immigrant, racist policies. Our threat is a president that fuels the hatred that results in the hate crimes we see in the streets, the violence that we see towards our communities and our places of worship. He is the threat. He is the national emergency. Since November of 2016, hate crimes and
Our next speaker is going to be the chair of the Judiciary Committee, Congressperson Gerald Nadler. Not faced a challenge to democratic rule in this country or to our constitutional norms and liberty such as we see now emanating from the White House since the Civil War. The last time we had such a challenge to democratic government was during the Civil War. And we must step up and we must crush it. We must crush it. This emergency declaration is just the latest of a long train of usurpations by this president and his minions. When the president attacks the judiciary and attacks the free press and calls the free press the enemies of the people, a phrase I thought was retired was Stalin. That's a challenge to our democratic society. When the president attacks the judiciary and attacks the ethnicities of some of the judges, that is a challenge to a democratic society. When a president who hands out insults like rain but has no skin at all says, why can't we do something about Saturday Night Live? When the president thinks we should use the power of government to squelch the free speech, that is a challenge to democratic government. That is a challenge to liberty. When a president declares a phony state of emergency because Congress won't give him what he wants, that is a challenge to democracy. I was thinking when he first started talking about this, that Oliver Cromwell, remember him from the 1640s? Must be rolling in his grave. They fought a civil war in England to say that Parliament, not the King, controls the purse strings. And we inherited that. We fought a revolution here to say that Congress, that the people represented in Congress control the purse strings and decide what money is spent on. The president can suggest, but he cannot dictate. The president must not be a dictator. When you look at how democracies die, and there's a book I read recently called How Democracies Die, which is a study of the degradation of democratic government in various countries. One of the things that happens is that the executive, the president, the prime minister, whoever, calls a state of emergency. They pass an enabling act, such as the Reichstag did in 1933. They pass various acts to let the president or the chancellor or whoever rule by decree. That must not happen in the United States. We will not stand for that. That must be crushed. I don't have to tell you that the emergency he talks about doesn't exist. What emergency does he see? He sees an emergency of people with the wrong skin color coming across our borders. He sees an emergency that he can't convince Congress to crack down on immigration that we don't want to crack down on. He sees an emergency that Congress won't grant him what he wants. That's not an emergency. He lies, of course. He lies about drug smugglers who will be stopped by the border wall, although we know that drugs come in at the points of entry hidden. He lies about terrorists coming in, although not one single terrorist incident in the last 20 years that was perpetrated by someone who came over the border with Mexico. He lies about rapists, he lies about all these people, but we know he lies. And that's why Congress won't give him what he wants. We have to have a sensible policy, but not a cruel policy, not a racist policy, and not a dictatorial policy. When he declared
a state of emergency. The only emergency is that Congress didn't agree with him. And the only real emergency is that he might get away with it. That's an emergency. Because that cannot be tolerated. His getting away with spending money for what Congress didn't approve, for what he wants, as bad as it is, or even if it were a good thing he wanted that Congress didn't approve, is a dictatorship. We will not permit that to happen. We cannot permit that to happen. That's why we're all here. This is the latest of all the different outrages he has done. And all the different outrages I presume he will do before we get rid of him. This is one of the most fundamental. And we will oppose it. We'll oppose it in Congress when we go back next week with a resolution of disapproval. We'll oppose it in the court. We'll oppose it in the court. We'll oppose it in the streets. We will stop it because ultimately the people will not permit this country to slide into dictatorship, Donald Trump or no Donald Trump.
Your point is very well taken.
All right, our next speaker is the Vice President of the New York Immigration Coalition, Murad Awudul.
When immigrants are under attack, what do we do? When immigrants are under attack, what do we do? When refugees are under attack, what do we do? When Muslims are under attack, what do we do? We've seen many national emergencies over the past 2 years. We've seen caging of children, which is a national emergency. We've seen banning refugees as a national emergency. We've seen the rise of white supremacy as a national emergency. Yes. And what we've also seen is that this president is a national emergency. This vanity hate wall has no place in our country. We are better than this. We are better than this. We've seen him attack immigrants since before he took office, spewing anti-immigrant rhetoric. And when he took office, he turned that rhetoric into policy. But I come here today to tell you that this is our New York, and this is our country, and we will not allow a fascist or white nationalist president to make us turn our backs on the people who need us most, who are fleeing conflict, who are fleeing violence, who are fleeing persecution from not entering because this is supposed to be a safe harbor. We did it before, and we said never again. But this time, when we say never again, we actually mean it. And we will never, ever turn our backs on those who are most vulnerable, and in large part due to actions of our country's foreign policy. So I want you all to do one quick thing for me, and take out your cell phones. You're going to text NYC to the number 864237. The number again, 864237. And you're texting NYC. That is our action alert hotline. We will text you when there is an urgent issue that arises and we need to mobilize to stand up to other hateful policies. The number once more, 864237, and you're texting NYIC to it. Thank you all for coming out today, and we stand here in solidarity and in unity.
When Trump announced last Friday his national emergency, he said it's an invasion. He said we have an invasion of drugs and criminals coming into our country. Do you agree with that? No! Illegal border crossings are down. And get this, I guess Giuliani is still his lawyer, because he then said, I didn't need to do this, but I'd rather do it much faster. Now all the lawsuits that are going to be filed, if I was filing the lawsuit, I would begin with a quote, I didn't need to do this. Now, what he's going to be able to do is at a minimum divert $3.6 billion from military construction projects to the wall. But more important, the National Emergency Act, which was drafted in 1976, when you declare a national emergency, you have enormous power. For example, I don't want to scare you, but assuming that someone determined in this round was uncivil and destructive, he now has the power to hold and potentially then arrest us all. So what happened last Friday is really, really significant. Not only is there a legal case to be made, and I'll make it very simply for you. In the Constitution, we separate the legislature in Article 1, the executive in Article 2, and the judiciary in Article 3. In Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7, 197, remember that. It says very clearly that it is the Congress that determines the power of the purse.
Just like this.
It's the Congress that determines the appropriation and where the money goes. And the executive has no power to then redirect the money. So, the lawsuits that will take place, and there are going to be many, one of the simple arguments will be what I just said. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 doesn't give President Trump the power to redirect that money that Congress appropriated. But it's not just a constitutional legal issue, because what he did on Friday is unprecedented. Usually the national emergencies deal with foreign adversaries. It deals with trade. It deals with exports coming into America. It deals with sanctions against other nations and individuals. Nowhere, I'll repeat, nowhere in our 242-year history in this country has there ever been a national emergency where the Congress said, no, we're not going to give you the $5.7 billion for your wall. And yet, he's now redirecting funds to create that wall. I repeat, that has never happened before. But as I said before, it's more than just a legal question. It goes to what we want our country to be. It goes to what our country is supposed to be. We have checks and balances. We don't want a monarchy. The founding framers came from a monarchy. They set up a constitutional system that's not about a king or a queen. It's about democracy. It's about the people. We don't want any kind of authoritarianism in America. Do you agree?
Yes.
We don't want autocrats. What we want is public servants who serve us, the people. So we must continue to march, to rally, to speak up to our neighbors, to our family, friends, and neighbors. And we must write letters to the editors. We must write op-ed to people at places in order to get the issue across. We in New York live in a bubble. Thank God we live in a bubble. But this is an issue that affects the entire country. So we need to persuade other people that we cannot continue with Trump in the office of the President of the United States. Do not underestimate the power of impeachment. And hopefully the Mueller report will give us the ammunition to begin the impeachment process. I worked on the impeachment process of Richard Nixon. It took us 17 months to do it. So please be patient.
Right now. What happened?
Please.
You saw what happened. They stole my hat off my head and threw it in the crowd.
Okay.
It's on film. You all
Don't
got
give her
it.
what she wants.
So, let's not be distracted. Let's not be distracted. Dr. King always told us, keep our eyes on the prize. Keep our eyes on the prize. We need to keep our eyes on the prize. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted. Okay.
I'll give you a real story.
That's what makes America great. Not hate. That's what makes America great. Not hate. That's what makes America great. Not hate. That's what makes America great.
There was a big high wall that sign was stated, said private property, but on the back side it didn't say nothing. That sign was made U.N.E. When the sun comes shining, then I was strolling, and we feel strolling, the north was rolling, boy change. Hello, people! Can we? With a solution, could we have a solution, a declaration that we are going to change this? We're going to change it not by hating like they do. We're going to change it by being deliberate and making changes in a legal way. We're going to use the Constitution for the purpose that we are all here for. And we're going to make the change not by joining them in hating, but by having love and peace. Like Martin Luther King said, all we fight cast out darkness, and we're facing tremendous darkness. So it's up to us to shine light into this world, and put this darkness to shame. Okay, a protest song from eons ago, written by Woody Guthrie. This land is your land. It's our land. It belongs to all of the people. So that's what we're going to sing right now. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Island. From the redwood forest to Carroll Creek water. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking back to
And then we're going. What's your hymnal? Number 6. What is the old hymnal? 5. Over the rainbow. Lives matter to all, and Muslims stand in the grave. Somewhere over the rainbow we rejoice.
A sign was made,
And get people pay and make their own goddamn choice. Somewhere there is no Cheetos are, and all the fascist fucks are far behind it. There's healthcare when you have an ache, and Christians have to bake a cake with hot pink icing. Somewhere over the rainbow kids run.
that I was strolling in wheat fields waving and dust clouds rolling. Dark voice came changing as the fog was lifting. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Gulf Stream waters to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. One more time. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
Okay. Our next speaker is a New Yorker,
What month are you?
Randy Weingarten from AFT.
No, don't listen.
So, are the people in the plaza? Say it again.
Don't take the bait, okay?
When I get into a
No, I know. Don't.
Are the people in the plaza? Are the people here? Do the people want democracy? Do the people want dictatorship? Are we ready to fight? Are we ready to love? Are we ready to care? Are we ready to show up? Are we ready to build bridges, not walls? Are we ready to build
on the streets, in Congress, and at the voting booth. Are you ready to do that? Yes! Are you ready to do that? Yes! Are you ready to do that? Yes! Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andy. Our next speaker is Carlos from Brooklyn College. Hello, New York! Hello, young people! I need to hear something louder from the young people here. Where are the young people? So yes, I go to Brooklyn College. I'm a student. I'm also the president of Young Progressives of America. Now, we are in a pivotal moment in history, and we must understand that very clearly. Right now, Trump has used extraordinary powers to use the military and usurp powers that are reserved for Congress to build an anti-Latino wall. That's what it is. It's a monument to white supremacy. Think about it for 1 second. Why is the wall on the southern border and not the northern border? Now, I love my Canadian friends, but Canadians are actually the country in which has more people than undocumented, and we should welcome them, absolutely. But why is the wall being built on the southern border? Because it's not meant to keep people out. It's meant to send a very clear message that we are not welcome, that the Latinx community is not welcome, that immigrants are not welcome. But that is not what America is about, is it? No! Are we going to allow a small group of people that have temporarily held on to the halls of power, who do not believe in inclusive America, to destroy our democracy? No! Absolutely not. There are two types of futures that we have right now. We're at crossroads. And as young people, everyone, but especially young people, we have to choose which one. One in which our democracy crumbles, in which authoritarian leaders destroy democracies, divide us up. Or do we want a future in which we have hope, a progressive future, where no one is afraid to be who they are, no matter the color of their skin, no matter their orientation, their gender, their wealth, their documentation, where we're all welcome to live to our fullest potential and not live in fear. Which one do we want, the first one or second one? Second! Exactly. Now, I want to speak about the immigrant experience a little bit because this is so crucial right now. My parents, they left Cuba to give me a better life. Now, I myself, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Spain when they were on their way to America. And I was always felt this as my home. But right now, I cannot lie to you, it is some troubling times. It is some very troubling times what is happening, especially as a young person seeing what our future is going to look like. Now, during the summer, we actually worked to stop 2 deportations. And we won. We beat ICE. We kicked them in the teeth. We did. We organized. We didn't allow the government, ICE, which is a fascist deportation machine, to separate these 2 families. One was a taxi driver, one was a pizza delivery man. And we won. We organized because people came together. We know we can win. So let's remember this today. There are protests across the country. History is watching us. And we know that we are on the right side of it. Share it with me. Si se puede. 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 I've been told that there's someone someone who came from Rockland County, supposed to speak. She just got here. I'm going to let her speak, and I'll do my thing in 1 minute.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to say can you all hear me? I just want to acknowledge everybody in the divine presence right now. As a person who was watching the news a couple days ago, Donald Trump was talking about an invasion in our southern border. And I have a couple messages for Donald Trump. As an Iraqi American, I know what an invasion is. And refugees coming barefoot, fleeing persecution and economic hardship is not an invasion. And I am tired of the flavors of the month. 2 years ago, it was Syrian Muslims equals terrorists. Today, it is Mexicans equals MS-13. And this country has done it decade after decade. From indigenous Americans to Mormons to African Americans to LGBTQ, and we are tired. And I personally am not interested in finding out who the next group is going to be. Who's with me? And personally, this Iraqi American, my father first came to this country 60 years ago. His plane landed in New York City, and his very next stop was El Paso, Texas. And he used to go swimming in the Rio Grande River, the very place where Trump wants to put his wall. I went there a few months ago with a delegation of interfaith leaders, and we visited a child's internment camp. They were warehousing children as young as 9 months old. The same places, they were filling up empty military bases, out-of-work factories, empty hospitals. And the same corporations that make profit off of refugee camps and off of mass incarcerating our young African American men are the same places that are profiting off of torturing young children ripped apart from their mothers and fathers. And that is the national emergency. And that is against us. And that is against everything we stand for. And there's nothing that scares anybody more than intersectional coalition building. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you all. Let me sum up by using a legal term. I think the speakers have made a strong affirmative case that we face a clear and present danger in America in 2019. Now, we've had a lot of dark days in America previously. We're in a dark period right now. But I ask you to remember that America has always been aspirational. We don't look at what is. We look and try to figure out how do we strive to become what we should be. This emergency is unconstitutional, and we cannot and must not allow it to take place. We need the Congress to pass that resolution. The procedure is the House. I don't think they should have gone on recess. I think they should have passed the resolution today. Once the House passes the resolution, it goes to the Senate. The Senate has to act within 18 days. And there should be enough Republican senators to vote with the Democratic senators to get a resolution prohibiting this emergency. Now, most likely the president will veto it, and then we have to hold every one of them accountable. Because this is something that, as speakers have said before, we have not seen this in America up to this point. And if we don't check it now, we will lose our country. And we cannot allow that to happen. The freedom, the justice, the equality, the fairness, and the opportunity that we strive for, we're not there yet. but we have made incremental change. We cannot stop on that journey to justice and freedom for everyone. So continue to march, rally, speak up. If in fact you get arrested, call the legal programs, the Civil Liberties Union, the Center for Constitutional Right. We need to make sure that years from now, when our children and our grandchildren say to us, Grandpa, were you around in 2019 when Trump was the president? And we say yes. The next question will be, well, Grandpa and Grandma, what did you do in 2019? And when they go after the immigrants, when they go after the Mexicans, when they go after the LGBT, when they go after the African American community, when they go after women, and we say, well, I'm not one of those. Remember, when they come after us, there'll be no one around to protect us. So we all need to come together, stay together, support each other, keep our eyes on that prize. That prize is democracy. Thank you all. Have a good night.
I sent you that stuff about the computerized election
This is what democracy looks like.
What brings you out?
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Really good sign.
This is what democracy looks like.